Welcome everybody to the Rancho Santa Fe Language and Laughter. We encourage you to keep your microphones on and interact with everybody. If you do have like a barking dog or something in the background, go ahead and mute yourself. But Richard wants this to be interactive. So I encourage you to put it on speaker view and go ahead and ask your questions. And this is a social, so be social and have fun.
Don't have that.
And Sophia, would you like to introduce Richard?
Yes. Dear Richard, welcome to our January social. Tonight, our guest is a linguist, an author, a speaker, and a teacher, a linguistic comedian of sorts. He's also known as Attila the Pun or Conan the Grammarian. He's the founder and co-host of Away with Words on KPBS, the author of a weekly column in the Union Tribune titled Lederer on Language, and is an author of over 50 books. And of interest to, especially to Rotarians, he is a Paul Harris Fellow. The list of his accomplishments and abilities are extensive. And since I don't really have quite the way with words that he possesses, I'd like to introduce our speaker without further delay. And so it is my pleasure to honor to welcome Dr. Richard Lederer to our Rancho Santa Fe Rotary.
Okay, I'm seeing clapping, but not hearing it. So I'm worried about whether people are unmuted. I don't think they are.
Do you want us unmuted, Richard?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Watch out for the baby crying or the dog barking.
We were making a lot of noise, so we muted ourselves, but we're back.
And I'll tell you why I'd like you unmuted unless you prefer not.
And I saw you beat me to getting the black bag out there.
I do more than 100 personal appearances a year. And incidentally, one of my regular ones is at the Rancho Santa Fe Senior Center, which clearly most of you are not eligible for.
Clearly.
In my case, I am so old that when I was a boy, the Grand Canyon was a gopher hole, Moby Dick was a minnow, and the Dead Sea was only sick at that time, not dead. I'm knocking on the door of 83, still playing vigorous tennis. I've got 2 more books coming out next year. I do want you to know, I'll just show you my little babies from this year, Treasury of Halloween Humor and Christmas Humor. And with your nearby Learning Dressed Up to Have Fun, they're not children's books, they're for 12 and above. And actually, I had a terrific fundraiser with them for your nearby Delmar Rotary, if you know Dugan Moore, the Davies, Jim and Karen, and that group, they were just great to work together. Because a lot of you are very young, the Union Tribune. So for you younger folks, this is what a newspaper looks like. See, it's this big sheet that you put in the other sheets. And I appear actually at the moment every other week, alas, but there I am on B2. You probably can't see it well, that's the top. I've been writing this is my 9th year with the Union Tribune, and I've been about 8.5 years with KPBS. With KPBS Public Radio, I didn't have to interview for the job. I walked in, they took a look at me, and they said, "You have the perfect face for radio." So they put me right on. And I just want to be sure, because I can't see it myself. Again, last time I'm going to ask, but Jera et al., not etc., et al., meaning other people, I am on the big rectangle as I speak, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. But then, but I'm not seeing you that way. And actually, that's not that important at this point, but as long as I am. So just, wonderful to be here. Part of my reason of knocking on the door at 83 with a clear mind and a body that can still play decent tennis is I have blown up the distance between who I am and what I do. I was a pre-medical student. I took all the pre-med courses, a chemistry major, but then I took some literature courses and I was hooked. I ended up teaching at an Episcopal, at that time, boys, but now co-ed church boarding school in New England called St. Paul's School. Some of you may know it or know some alumni from it. And I left to expand my mission of teachership, and here I am. So a couple of things, and then we'll start with the comedy. Some of you may have seen me on stage, incidentally, because you're nearby, at that marvelous theater in your neighborhood, North Coast Rep, and the very talented David Ellenstein. And what I've done there is the theater, and actually the last time I was there was March 7th, just before everything closed down, and I raised $7,000 for them because they get the gate, the tickets. Thank you, Paulette. And Catherine, I see you doing that, but I'm not hearing you, but I just hope that I can hear you all, because you can probably hear me. And also when I auction myself off, which I do there for either language or poker lessons. Some of you may have heard about my daughter, Annie Duke, the winningest woman in poker history. You'll hear a little bit more about her on, I think it's the 24th, but I will be talking on the American presidents in about a month, almost exactly. And
I absolutely remember her.
yeah,
Annie Duke?
Annie Duke is my daughter, and her older brother, Howard, is my son.
Wow, I watched him on poker.
Yeah, but you sure did, Don. And Don Meredith, you played quarterback for the Cowboys, I think, and
Yeah,
you were a broadcaster.
now you're showing your age there, partner.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I embrace my age. And you know why? Because I'm all the other ages. We're not just our age, we're the ones that we were. And there are more of them, the older, the more chronologically gifted that you become. So I love being the other ages too. And look, as I'll mention in a month from now, but I'll just mention this as a theme. I tend to be extemporaneous. It wasn't that long ago that Ronald Reagan was the oldest man to enter the Oval Office as president, not to steal a pen, but to become president. He entered at 69 years old, 11 months and 2 weeks, so right on the cusp of 70, and more remarkably, left office 8 years later on the cusp of 78. Now, he has since been exceeded by Donald Trump, who entered office at 70 and 4 months. But now Joe Biden has exceeded both of them. And Joe Biden entered the Oval Office older than Ronald Reagan when he left the Oval Office. And it says something about the good years that we have, the amazing health system that we have, especially out your way. And again, because I think you want to be optimistic and not miss the optic. And that's called a kind of internal spoonerism. But just the fact that we're meeting now, and here is this technology for this very challenging time, really says something. You know, they didn't have the Zoom 102 years ago in 1918. So we're less isolated and we have this. And my point is that human beings are so resilient. So what's going to happen is I'm going to do some comedy acts, and then I'm going to take questions after each one. What I will do is, and a thanks again with permission from the good women who are sort of overseeing this, I will stay as long as you want. Any question about language, particularly if you know a way with words, I've been ably succeeded by Martha and Grant, if you happen to know that show.
I love them. Yes. And I'm on their Facebook page. I converse on that page every other day. It's awesome.
Paulette, I was the one who discovered Martha, and brought her in, and then came Grant. I retired from that. And at any rate, I'm very, very proud of them. We're very ably succeeded. So questions on any aspect of language, because you know that's what we do on the show, because we're freaky people and we know that stuff. Questions on writing, either how do I do it? When did I discover that I wanted to do it? But also your own writing. Maybe you're writing a memoir in some cases with you. The kids don't care, but the grandkids do. And what are the options for doing a memoir? What are the possibilities? Or, gee, I'm thinking of self-publishing. How does that work compared to brick and mortar publishing? You name it, I'll be very happy to answer that. The only stupid question is the one you didn't ask and then you realize after that you should. So anything like that, or a word or a phrase, or what's the difference or distinguish between lie and lay, for example, the two most confused verbs in the language. I am here as long as you want me. And that means even if it's only a couple at the end. And again, with the recording, and I'm sure that Jera and others will give you some instructions, but feel free to invite friends in for that because I'm a teacher and that means I'm a compulsive sharer. One of my 2 or 3 most famous pieces is The World According to Student Bloopers. I'm going to read you or perform excerpts from it. If you want it, email me at richardhlederer@gmail.com and I'll hold up that information at the end. And I will send it to you. It's in a book called Anguished English. Obviously, you can have that. And there'll be information on that at the end of the show that will be posted. But these are all genuine, certified, unretouched, not concocted by any professional comedian. These are ones that I've collected, a lot of them from my fellow inmates in the House of Corrections. So the inhabitants of ancient Egypt, we're going to start with that, lived in the Sahara Desert, which they cultivated by irrigation and over which they traveled by camelot. They all rode in hydraulics, and ancient Egyptian women wore a colossus, a loose-fitting garment which started just below the breasts, which hung to the floor. Marvelous example. Gee, it looks to me like a lot of you are muted. I'd rather hear your laughter, but it is up to you. I mean, I take it the host has there. I'm hearing that. Good. It's helpful.
I'm very entertained.
You say the dress was below the breast line?
You got it. Well,
I love that. I'm just visualizing these Egyptian women with their breasts hanging everywhere.
It's an example of a misplaced modifier. Look, I'm just trying to make a clean breast of things, Eli.
Yeah, that was very clean.
You've opened up a can of worms now.
Well, inevitably, from the Egyptians to the Bible, and I'll just start with this. Do you know why Adam and Eve were the happiest couple on earth?
They had an apple.
Pretty good. Well, it's because she couldn't tell him how many other men she could have married, and he couldn't tell her how much he loved his mother's cooking. And speaking of poker, and there was a Don Meredith, I think, was in the poker. Do you know why marriage is like a deck of cards? Well, you start off with 2 hearts and a diamond, and pretty soon you want to grab a club and use a spade.
Catherine, stop.
And listen, if that went too fast, email me, richardhlederer@gmail.com. Very easy, except the H in the middle, because some other idiot named Richard Lederer beat me to it. So inevitably then, to the Bible. Oh, incidentally, Moses, by the way, and then I'll get to the bloopers, was the first man in history to download data from the cloud to his tablet.
Oh,
I love it. I can tell I'm with a bunch of herbivores.
I'm stealing that one.
Let my people go.
Robin,
That's
you
a
know,
good
when we
one.
were first planning this, said, look, this is a time for laughter. I mean, I've got a lot of serious stuff too, but I agree, Robin, that I think this will work best. So at any rate, to the Bible. So uh, uh, um, Noah's wife was called Joan of Arc, and Lot's wife was a pillar of salt by day and a ball of fire by night. I didn't write these, I just collect them and thread them together. Moses went up on Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments, but he died before he ever reached Canada. David was a Hebrew king skilled at playing the lyre, L-I-A-R, should be L-Y-R. It's a stringed instrument, whence we get the word lyric. Solomon, one of David's sons, had 300 wives and 700 porcupines. And I really wanted to add to that one, to whom he made love very carefully, but I didn't because a student didn't write that. And I really, you know, cleave to that ethic. So now we move to the classical world. The Greeks were a highly sculptured people, and without them, we wouldn't have history, which might be true, Western history. The Greeks invented 3 kinds of columns: Corinthian, Ironic, and Doric. They also created myths. A myth is a female moth, and one myth tells us that the mother of Achilles dipped him in the river Styx until he became intolerable. And those of you who have read the Iliad and the precursor to that know what I'm talking about. Socrates was a famous Greek teacher who went around giving people advice. They killed him. Socrates died of an overdose of wedlock. And there, and I can see the smiles, hear the laughter. It's wedlock, it's hemlock, of course. And this works very well with a group like you because I know you're, you know, highly educated. So this is the laughter and joy and smiles of educated people. And I don't mean to sound snooty or snobby about that. It's just a fact, because the more educated you are, the more laughter you will have. And given your state of education with most of you, and it doesn't mean that you have had to be at college, university, private school, or whatever, but when you achieve education, when you make education a lifelong adventure, and you're tuned into this, so I suspect that's the case, you get it. In other words, rather than it just flying over your head, what was that about? You know about Socrates and the hemlock. Or if I said, what's the difference between a centaur and a senator? And that's Centaur, okay? One is half man and half horse's ass, and the other is a creature in mythology. Well, you know that, of course, that centaur and what the centaur looked like. And I actually stole that from an old joke. What's the difference between a catfish and a lawyer? With apologies to some of you, I actually also attended Harvard Law School the year before Janet Reno. What's the between a catfish and a lawyer? One is a bottom dwelling scum sucker and the other's a fish. Yeah, it's the same basic formula there. Well, inevitably, from the Greeks to the Romans came along and conquered the geeks. And there's a focus in anguished English on Julius Caesar, who extinguished himself on the battlefields of Gaul. And when the Ides of March murdered him, he expired with these immortal words upon his dying lips: "Eat you, Brutus." And of course, for many of you, you know the et tu from the Shakespeare Julius Caesar. You can imagine what a man like Shakespeare does to a man like me. I faint in his presence. And if you're ever interested in a session on Shakespeare, and an evening one, because I need more than the half hour that's usual in the daytime, I'd be delighted to do that. So the wheel of history turns again, and now the Romans themselves are overrun by the barbarians. And this leads us into the Middle Ages, when everyone was middle-aged. Again, every one of these authentic, genuine, certified, unconcocted by me. I just string them together. King Arthur lived in the age of chivalry with brave knights on prancing horses and beautiful women. I watched that with Jerry's son there, but I thought I could still do that at any rate. And I notice he's been enjoying this, and that's great. He's 14 years old, as I recall. Joan of Arc was burned to a stake. I call that a rare medium well done. People contracted the blue bonnet plague, which caused them to grow boobs on their necks. Magna Carta provided that no free man should be hanged twice for the same offense. People perform morality plays about ghosts, goblins, virgins, and other mythical creatures. And then came the Renaissance, when people felt the value of their human being, a kind of inadvertent, but I think spot on definition of the Renaissance, the English Renaissance and the European Renaissance overall too. An age of a great many inventions and discoveries. Gutenberg invented the Bible in removable type. Sir Walter Raleigh discovered cigarettes and started smoking. And Sir Francis Drake circumcised the world with a 100-foot clipper, a kind of a double pun. Let me be very clear. You don't have to buy my book to get this. I'll be happy to send you the whole thing. If you just ask richardhlederer@gmail.com, I guarantee at this juncture, at any rate, you would receive it within 24 hours and possibly at the end of the day. And it's also featured in Word Wizard, my anthology, and also in Anguished English, which was a New York Times bestseller. So during the Renaissance, America began. Christopher Columbus discovered America while cursing about the Atlantic on the Nina, the Pinta Colada, and the Santa Fe. That was from 3 different bloopers. I stitched them together. Abraham Lincoln became America's greatest president, with a C in there. Lincoln's mother died in infancy, and he was born in a log cabin, which he built with his very own hands. Abraham Lincoln wrote the Gettysburg Address, listen for the misplaced modifier, while traveling from Washington to Gettysburg on the back of an envelope. Now, that's a classic misplaced modifier. The simple rule about modifying words, phrases, or even whole clauses, what we call an adjective clause, is you want to locate them as closely as you can to that which they purport to modify. So it should have been near wrote. He wrote on the back of the Gettysburg Address on the back of an envelope while traveling from Washington to Gettysburg. But because it come after traveling, we laugh and our stomach is detonated into a rolling boil, if I may mix a metaphor. But just to give you an example of the hot water that you can fall into when you misplace or dangle a modifier, they're two slightly different things. These are all real. Late 80s, Yoko Ono talks about her husband, John Lennon, who was killed in an interview with Barbara Walters. So that last prepositional phrase, not good. A little bit later in the 90s, and this is the former hostage Terry Anderson, this is Boston Globe, talks about his 5 years of captivity with Barbara Walters on Channel 5 at 10 p.m. And then the 96 Olympics, AP, so all over the country, Associated Press. The diving and amateur sports communities remained in shock today following revelations from Olympic diver Greg Louganis, by the way, San Diego connection, who contracted AIDS in a 2020 interview with Barbara Walters. Naturally, it had to come in. Again, happy to
Stay away from Barbara.
Watch out, Barbara.
Wawa.
Yeah, that's right. Barbara Wawa, you're back to Saturday Night Live. Oh my God, those old. So those are examples of bloopers, and I'm now going to open up the floor and hope you won't all fall through. But look, folks, even though we're going to meet on the 24th, we're not going to meet in this configuration. can't answer every question, but I'll sure try. Any questions on grammar usage? I may not have mentioned, I don't think I did. I'm usage editor of the Random House Dictionary of the English Language. And I love to make grammar interesting. I, on your own writing, any questions about writing and opportunities, San Diego's a great place. A lot of organizations of writers, guilds. I'm a life member of San Diego Writers and Editors. Any questions about word and phrase origins, pronunciation? And I will be open, I'm going to pun you to death shortly, but can I be of help to any of you? And I think when you speak, then you'll become the big screen, although I won't see that. So, but I'll see the yellow, I assume I'll see the yellow border around you.
I have one.
Elizabeth Christensen.
So whenever you're typing it's, IT apostrophe S, or
Right.
it always corrects it, it takes out the apostrophe.
Always?
It seems to me, does it
Well,
really read my sentence and know if it's supposed to be it is or it's?
well, it does to some extent. Yeah, the new, the computers, they do, but it's and it apostrophe S, the contraction, that is a category unto itself. And that is because a lot of pronouns do take the apostrophe, as in everyone's favorite Rotary Club is RSF, that kind of thing. So modeling, it looks like you put an apostrophe in, as in the dog licked its paws. I have a lot of exercises I do with which dog has the upper hand. Every dog knows its master, ITS master, and every dog knows its IT apostrophe S master. And of course, the upper paw is the second dog because it means every dog knows it is master. So in general, the mistake is that people put apostrophes in places, and I have a name for them, Elizabeth, pre-apostrophes. But it's true. For example, you see somebody's home, and in front is a sign saying the Smiths, capital SMITH apostrophe S. And I look at that and I go, well, which Smith is that? Because it's a bunch of them, presumably, that's what they mean. And I don't need the apostrophe because it's not my business if they own the house. Just the Smiths, no apostrophe at all would be fine. But I'll take the apostrophe, but it has to be after the S. And the it's is a huge problem. And just remember, an apostrophe possessive is that for or of what we're talking about. So a great example and a nice lead into my time with you next month, and I'll really try not to make you tired of me. I'd love to do it every day. Of course, I'm a teacher, but President's Day, and you'll see on buildings, capital PRESIDENT apostrophe S, but it's not for a president. It's for presidents, minimally two born in February. Notice I pronounce both R's, as in library and all of those. Thank you very much, Catherine. Yeah, pronunciation is important. And it's of the presidents. I will accept President's Day and no apostrophe. I would slightly prefer it after the S, but I'll take it either way. But I don't like it after the T. So thank you, Elizabeth. A good start.
And
yeah,
after the S and before the S, can you just give us a little bit of
for which one? It's or president?
No, like presidents or Smiths.
After the S, because it's the day of the presidents. So it's like boys clothing, BOYS apostrophe clothing, not one boy. You see. Like, for example, you walk into a restaurant, it says kids menu, and all the time they do KID apostrophe S.
Got it.
I'm saying that's terrible business, especially this day. One kid walks in, orders the menu, and that's it. They have to close up. They can't offer it anymore because it's one
Yes.
kid. It should be
Yes.
after the S.
Got it. Thank
So
you.
I hope that'll change it. And I'll tell you what, Elizabeth, and I'm serious. The next time you have a question on the it's, just email me and which one is it? And I'll say that one or that one. And I'm there for you.
Thank you.
And that's not false. It's just who I am because I've blown up that distance between who I am and what I do. Now, I hope I get this right. Sabi Singh.
You're absolutely
Nice.
Yeah. Well, by the way, my last book before the two holiday books is called The Joy of Names. So I'm really in the names. And I am powerful, Richard, and not rich, but powerful. And Lederer, just to give you an example, as in Lederhosen, is leather. A letterer is a leather craftsman, salesperson, a business person, whatever. It's the German equivalent of Skinner and Tanner. So Sabi, if you would, sir.
My question is, which type of English usage have you found is the most prolific in terms of humor? You refer to bloopers, which is, I guess, mostly spelling mistakes.
Yes, or the wrong word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a malapropism, right?
Yeah, malapropism, 1775, Richard Brinsley Sheridan, and malaprop meaning not appropriate, and Mrs. Malaprop was one of the great characters doing that. And by the way, in the early heritage of Archie Bunker, a lot of you do not remember All in the Family, I can tell. But for those who do, has it really been that long? 50 years ago, January, 50 years ago.
I watched him last night. I watched it last night on YouTube.
Okay, if you enjoy, go to my website because that was my column in the UT. So even if you don't get the UT, you will still be able to read that. And I give, all of those, I give a whole bunch. I talk about the show and it was very path-breaking and very frank and just terrifically, of course, Archie and Edith, and take a look at it. You'll have fun. You just go to my website, which is verbivore.com, and you'll see it's the current one on there. So, Sabi, the bloopers can come from anywhere. Of course, the most prolific English is standard English, at least so far, although we're losing ground. But I would say, pretty much standard English, and students trying to use it, correctly, but messing it up, as you heard in the essay that I had strung together. But here's the thing, Sabi. It's the nature of English, because the more words you have, the more confusion you're going to get. And English surpassed, yes, folks, 1 million words in September of 2009. And you're saying, oh, he's doing another joke. How could he know that? Because Google global search happens to be able to do that. We always know how many words we have because they're fed in, and we passed 1 million, twice as many as any other. So it's a wonderful language for punning, and you're going to find that out soon if you're willing to stick with me tonight. International Punster of the Year, in my case, voted the fastest punslinger in the world. But also, it makes for, circumcised instead of circumscribed, Sadi. So it's just the nature of the language itself to do that, and that we're more relaxed with it, just given English language culture, which also produces a lot of great puns, which I think you're going to see soon. I'll take one more for now, if anybody, just a grammar question, a writing question. Don Meredith.
Back to
Don,
my-
you remember Don Meredith, don't you? Who I'm talking about?
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
Yeah, that's right on there. Good. But and I would think, and of course, a very fine quarterback. Cowboys in their better days, shall we say?
Yeah, I grew up being called Dandy Don. I said to my
Dandy
father, "Wow,
Don.
what is this going on?" And then, when I call people in Texas, the younger generation, they used to say something right away about my name, but the younger generation, even when I say, "Does my name sound familiar?" Nowadays, they'll go,
No.
No, not really." They don't even know their own Texas quarterback.
Time like an ever rolling stream bears all of
Yeah.
us away, as the hymn goes in church.
Wow, chasing us like an alligator.
Yeah.
So my thought was, my question is, there's a couple of people in these squares that are very capable of writing a book.
Yes.
And while they may not have your command of the language, there are these wonderful things called editors.
Yes.
And what would your advice be to some of these people? I'm looking at two of you that have a wonderful book in them, but they don't get started. There's a wonderful book out there called The War of Art. I don't know if you've read that. Stephen Perlman is a Hollywood writer, and he talks about resistance and writing and starting anything. He says the most important thing to do when writing a book is start it. Never mind all the other stuff. What would your advice be to these couple of people? I'm looking at you that have a phenomenal book in you. I know it, but they're not doing it. So what would your advice be?
Well, I'll try to keep this shorter than a half hour because believe me, there's so much to this. In my case, I was writing school books in my 20s and 30s as a teacher. But my first big book that happened to sell 1 million copies, Anguished English, hit when I was 49. So I'm going to start with It's Never Too Late. Second, the greatest enemy, and you sort of said it, Don, of writing something extensive is obsession with perfection, because you're comparing your writing to what you see in actual books. And if I did that, I'd have never written the book. You start off and it's kind of not very good, and you keep revising and it gets better and better. And if you're trying to be perfect to begin with, you're going to have writer's block, the famous writer's block. Get it down. And the computer is marvelous for this, because if you're comfortable writing on the computer, the word processing makes such a difference, and you can dump it on. And of course, some of the spelling will be corrected automatically. And then, gee, I'm not sure if I should exchange paragraph 12 with paragraph 13. Well, try it and see how it looks. And if it doesn't, delete and it'll snap back to the other method. But if it works, save. And now, my God, the two, yeah, that works better. I need a little transition. The other thing is there's a huge writing community here, and very likely in your area. And they're there to be helpful, and reading groups are just there for you. And I guess my best thing would be, you lose all the points in life you don't play. So why not play them? What have you got to lose giving that book a try? And if it's autobiographical, you're moving along for something with the kids or the grandkids. But other possibilities are an interview with you in a studio, and then that tape or whatever you want to call it, the video is there for YouTube for your family, or doing a book on the computer just for the family. If you want to then go into self-publishing it, that's a question I can answer if asked. But Don, you said it very well. Don't be hard on yourself. Your story is unique, and set yourself a goal of 1 episode a night, if it's that kind of book, or 200 words a night. Not that you have to stay with it, and just go and do that, and you will see it grow. And then as you're moving along, call me. I've written 52 books now. I'm a nonfiction writer. And email me, gee, can I call you? And of course you can. And I'll do my best, although I'm not a fiction writer. You have to find out what kind of writer you are. I was editor of my junior high school literary magazine in my high school newspaper, and that gave me a great start. And my friends would say, Richie, when are you going to write the great American novel? And I realized soon, never. I completely suck at dialogue. My head is not enough in this world at plot development, character motivation, story arc. But boy, can I explain things. I said, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you, Don. Terrific.
Well said. Well said.
All right. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do some puns. Thank you. Well, any writer worth his or her salt wants to see other writers make it. And certainly at this age with me, whatever I can do to help. And of course, I know people who can edit for you and give you advice if you wish. And there also is a very fine self-publishing group in Cardiff. How far is that from you? Not very. That I could tell you about. Okay, sorry. I may have to go and get some water, but I think I'm fine. So I am International Punster of the Year. I believe that a good pun is like a good steak, a rare medium well done. I'm going to tell you a pun. We'll take some more Q&A, and then I'm going to give you another pun that will have some audience participation. So here we go. Hands up if you know who Quasimodo is. Hands up. Okay. Okay, that's most of you. And that's again educated people, and of course Victor Hugo and the Romantic French romance writer. So one of your benefits of being part of this group, and a little bit of reward for all this service above self that you do, which I'm sure is very time consuming, but one of the keys to a longer life is connecting with something larger than yourself. And you certainly have it with Rotary. But if I can serve your church or, whatever you're involved with, your book club, I do book clubs. I'm Zooming them now. I just did one in Pittsburgh for a bunch of women only. My pleasure. So you're going to learn how to make a Quasimodo face. So here we go. I want you to take, I'm watching you, at least those of you who aren't, just have the picture up. I want you to pull down on your eyes, okay? And I want you now to pull up on your nose. Okay. And there we go. Okay, very good. You can let go. Incidentally, it's very versatile. Look at this. Quasimodo, and now look at this. Phantom of the Opera. See, you leave the other side regular. Sophia, I have some bad news for you. Your Quasimodo face stuck. You're still looking like that. I'm so sorry. Don't sue me. No. It wasn't my fault.
Not our Sophia.
Here we go. Yes, which means wisdom. As you know, philosophy is philos, Sophia, love of wisdom. So at any rate, Quasimodo, and by the way, is not the quarterback of Notre Dame. He's not the halfback of Notre Dame. He's not the fullback of Notre Dame. He is the what, everybody? Hunchback of Notre Dame. I had a hunch you'd get that. Very good. Well, Quasimodo grows too old to ring the bell, so he puts an ad out in the paper, wanted bell ringer. And he opens up the door the next day, and there on a stoop or on the steps is a fellow with no arms. Now, because I'm not on stage, you don't see the bottom part, but I'm putting my hands behind me, so just pretend. A very disarming guy. He has no arms. Quasimodo says, wait a minute, are you here for the job of bell ringer? Yes, I am, says the man. Well, sir, says Quasimodo, I just have a question for you. You evince a prominent lack of appendages in the upper torso area. How do you propose to ring the bell? Well, I may have no arms, but I have a very tough forehead, says Quasimodo. I'm sorry, says the man. So I run at the bells, I strike them with my forehead, and they emit a gorgeous, exquisite, sonorous, beautiful sound. And for the literati among you, a tintinnabulating sound. Remember from high school, The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe? Just remember, if you love poetry, Poetry, switch the two halves and try Poe. One of our first great American geniuses as an author. I strike the bell, and and Quasimodo says, "Okay, you're hired." So the fellow mounts the obligatory spiral staircase up into the tower, the armless fellow, looks at the bell, runs at it, strikes it with his forehead, bang! Gorgeous, exquisite, sonorous, beautiful, even tintinnabulating. But the bell is on a fulcrum, a lever, whatever you want to call it. It swings back, clops him in the head, knocks him out of the tower, and he splats on the cobblestones below. The police come. Mr. Quasimodo, yes. Do you know this man? Yes, I do. He was in my employ. Well, for our records, can you give us his name? And Quasimodo, not the real Modo, but the Quasimodo says, well, I don't know his name, but his face rings a bell.
Oh, boy.
And you see there, well, I'm not done, trust me. But you see there that essentially a pun is a word or a group of words having more than one meaning for each one that's involved, but in the space of only one word. So if you've heard about the successful perfume manufacturer, his business made a lot of sense. And you see, holy crow, sense, as you hear it, you couldn't write it, it was perfume, so SCENTS. It was sense he was successful, or she, CENTS, and it was just and appropriate, so there it is, SENSE, and that's the way puns work. Well, okay, so now, unfortunate, Quasimodo has to put out an ad for another bell ringer. So he puts that ad in the paper, another one wanted bell ringer, and then details. The next day he opens the door, and there is a fellow out on the steps who looks exactly like the first guy. And Quasimodo says, are you here for the job of bell ringer? I'm sorry, are you here for the job of bell ringer? Yes, I am. Well, sir, I have to ask you, you look remarkably like a fellow who was in my employ recently and who jumped to a conclusion. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jump to, how do you propose to ring the bell? And the fellow, I'm putting my arms behind, says, well, that's very perceptive of you, sir. That man, everybody thinks that we were identical twins, thought that we were identical twins, but actually he was 3 years older than I. I'm his younger brother. And I too have a very tough forehead. And when I strike the bells and make them emit a gorgeous, exquisite, sonorous, beautiful, tintinnabulating sound, when the bell comes back, I get out of the way because I am more athletic and flexible than he. You're hired, says Quasimodo. And the man mounts the obligatory spiral staircase up into the tower, looks at the bell, runs at it, bang. And sure enough, as it swings back from its fulcrum, he sways out of the way. And for 3 days and 3 nights, the town is treated to exquisite, gorgeous, beautiful music. But the third night, the man gets stinking drunk. And just to show you a little bit about etymology, which is another specialty of mine, a fancy word for drunk is intoxicated. And notice in the middle is toxic. Why? Because the Greeks knew that overindulging, over consuming alcohol, it would act like poison. So they put the toxic in from toxicon, Greek, from the poison tipped arrows that they use, which that's right, Amy, right. Oh, and your last name is Wine.
Richard,
Oh, excuse me.
Richard,
Yeah.
Richard, you got that with the Greeks.
Yes.
We
Right.
started it.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Oh, Catherine.
Started it. About
Yeah.
time you said
Well,
that.
all I can say to Amy, Catherine, and everyone else is I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. So at any rate, at any rate, those arrows, if they just grazed you, you were a goner, you were dead. So now he staggers up the stairs, up into the tower, kind of eyeballs, but blurrily, the bell, lurches toward it and strikes it a glancing blow. And now as the bell swings back, he's too wasted to get out of the way. It clops him in the head, knocks him out of the tower, and he too splatters on the cobblestones below. The police come. Mr. Quasimodo, yes. Do you know this man? Yes, I do. He was also an employee of mine. And the police say, well, for the record, can you give us his name? And Quasimodo says, I don't know his name, but he's a dead ringer for his brother.
Oh, boy.
That's from my book, Get Thee to a Punnery. If you want just the 2 puns, email me. You will get them within 24 hours of bell jokes. Let's have some more questions, and including, how I can serve you with your book club. I can tell you what I do with book clubs, your church, fundraiser, whatever. Maybe poker lessons, but that is impossible now. I can't do it. I can't do it here. And actually, almost in your area, but I do that each year for the Helen Woodward Animal Rescue, that marvelous place. I think, is that in Rancho Santa Fe? I think it is, just on the edge. Yeah.
Fairbanks Ranch.
Fairbanks Ranch. Yeah. So where else? Grammar usage. My pleasure. Anything else? I'm looking for
I have a
hands.
question.
Okay.
Agree.
Yeah, Richard. So
Yeah, your last name, incidentally, almost certainly means a forester, somebody working in a forest.
Foskiropoulos.
Pardon me?
Foskiropoulos.
Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So Richard.
Yes, ma'am.
I send out messages where I want to give information.
Sure.
And I attempt to bulletize, but other people write in full sentences. So what's your opinion on getting a message out to a large group of people?
And did you say you use bullet points?
I like to bullet and center.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's easy on the eye. You probably have the automatic, the bullet becomes automatic. I use it a lot, at least in my longer stuff. So I'm all for the bullet points. So I'm with you there. Where appropriate, where it's a list, I think they're more readable in a sentence. They don't have to be a full sentence. I would suggest that you put a semicolon at the end of each of the first ones and a period at the end of the last one. But I think it's a great invention, and I would use them.
So did Catherine invent a word? Because I heard her say bulletize.
I'm not sure. It's new to me, but remember, every word we have is invented by a human being.
Yes.
And we sure got some new ones, didn't we, this past year? Obviously, COVID-19, some of the more playful ones, if I may, are a COVIDiot, and that is called a portmanteau word. And that term, I think, was invented by Lewis Carroll, who had a lot of them. 'Twas Brilligan, the slithy toasted gyre and gimble in the wave, and chortle and galump are all his, where you take the beginning of one word and the end of another and you pack them into a traveling bag. That's where we get that. But with the COVID, and so COVIDiots, of course, are people who behave dangerously and maybe disrespectfully during
Oh.
this terrible plague that we're having. Unmute. You know, how many of us, I was using Zoom a little, but did we use the word unmute in our lives before about a year ago or even sooner? I don't think so.
And telling people to
Another one-
unmute yourself and telling people to unmute yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And when did we do that? Only recently. Maybe somebody said that to Harpo Marx. I'm not sure, but I think it's new for most of us. Another one I like is Blur's Day. You can imagine what that is, and that became fairly big. And that, of course, is you don't know what day it is or the date until you look at your watch or clock or computer screen or telephone or whatever. But haven't you felt that? And that's one of the nice things about your Rotary meetings. Now, are you meeting as a group? Is it weekly or every other week, aside from these entertainment nights?
Yes,
We-
weekly.
Good. And is that on which day of the week is that?
We meet on Wednesdays, but
Yeah,
we,
from Woden's Day, incidentally, the Greek, the Norse god, and Thursday, Thor's Day. And that's why Wednesday looks so odd. You're looking, what is that? Well, it's Woden's with a lot of respelling of it. I just, I dig this stuff, but what are we going to do? I've only been granted 3 hours with you. Thank you very much. So, and by the way, we have a machine and you can't get away or your computer explodes. But the point is Blur's Day, but it isn't Blur's Day on those Wednesdays when you meet. And isn't that a gift? And you get to see each other. And again, to me, it says science will out as it does here for us, or we couldn't do this. And it's so important that we do. We're such social animals. Hey, just because I'm compulsive about teaching, a couple of quick recommendations, if I may. Hands up if you've seen The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. That's almost everybody. Well, for the few who haven't, take a look around. It's amazing. And my daughter, Annie Duke, the winningest woman in poker history at the time, loved it because she too was a woman in a man's world of poker. And that Anya Taylor-Joy is an amazing young actress. So if you haven't, I really suggest that it's 7 episodes, and don't let the darkness of the first one drive you away, because you need that for the story arc. And I'm not saying any more. And the rest of you know just what I mean. By the way, for those of you who have watched it, and if you enjoy her work, she is Emma Woodhouse in the new iteration of the Jane Austen novel on film. And that's pretty easy to get. I think, is that on Netflix or HBO Max or whatever there. Another one, if I may, and I've got a ton of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I think is a great series. So 3 years, only, I think 7, 8 episodes. I was disappointed.
Great.
Excellent. And then a terrific documentary that I'm pretty sure is Netflix. I think Maisel is on Prime, Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure, is My Octopus Teacher.
Oh, I saw that. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
Craig Foster, a South African who died into the frigid waters off of South Africa, and befriends an octopus, and you just get a sense of these alien creatures living among us millions of years before any complex life on land developed. And yet they have amazing intelligence, even though they live only a year or at the most 2 in the wild, which is counter the way our kind of intelligence does. That is vertebrate mammalian intelligence. And they're asocial, except that they can make relationships, as you'll see in the documentary, but remarkable. Sorry for going off, but
what's the name of that?
Richard,
that is called My Octopus Teacher. And then if you go to KPBS TV, you'll get some nice documentaries on octopi, except it is octopuses because of the way our language is going.
I watched that 3 times.
Does that have an apostrophe?
No. Hey, I'm sorry. Eli, you watch which 3 times?
Yeah,
I-
hi,
that was
Richard.
me.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this beautiful evening with us. And this is cheers to Richard, guys.
All right.
Making us all smile
Hey,
tonight.
I'm not leaving yet, but
No,
sure.
no. The reason I wanted to ask you a question, my daughter is a producer and she's very interested in talking to your daughter and learning more about her winning the poker championship. And if
Sure.
she's interested in doing a
Email
series,
me. I'll give you her. I'll give you her email. She does live right outside of Philadelphia. Her husband and she occupy. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. They live in the home formerly, not formally, formerly. You got to get that R in. Occupied by Dr. J.
Oh, my
Julius
favorite
Urban.
player of all time.
Oh, there you go. So she's
Nice.
not. Is your daughter in California, sir?
yes, she's actually
Yeah.
she's here. She wrote the show. Anyways, she's a producer from NYU, and
Any
Gambit was my
what-
favorite, one of my favorite shows.
Queen Gambit was her favorite, and that's
Oh
what
my God.
I'm
And the
here,
Queen's
I'm actually
Gambit.
listening.
Hi.
You're very,
Oh, that's the daughter.
yes.
Yeah.
I've
Hey,
just been kind of listening on the side.
are you an Annie fan? Annie Duke fan? Do you know her?
I don't know
Okay.
her.
Okay.
No.
Well,
I-
hey, for the right price for the right group, I'll come over and give you guys a poker lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Not now though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Good, strong characters and strong females, though. So I'm all about promoting.
Well,
strong
okay, listen, if you're about that, and watch it because this could disappear, but take a look at Codebreaker on KPBS. And that is originally Elizabeth Smith, who becomes Elizabeth Friedman by marriage, who basically invented the code breaking departments in America. This is late World War I into World War II. And of course, J. Edgar Hoover, afflicted by XY chromosome, preposterone, takes all the credit, and she is almost forgotten. And a brilliant mind, and a little bit like, Beth Harmon, if you know that chess show. And incidentally, that show was advised by the greatest chess player of all time, Garry Kasparov. When I say greatest, the highest rating of any chess player. And he was supposed to play Gorbov, but it would have been too much time, the Russian champion that you meet. But he did advise them on the nature of the games and the terminology and how people would look at each other. So if you haven't seen it, please, and if you get Netflix, please do that. And then My Octopus Teacher, it's about an hour and 20 minutes. The other is 7. So we'll close with questions, and that can even include how I can be of help to you. Pronunciation, grammar, punctuation, that has come up. What's this business about they coming in as a singular as well as a plural? Can you use a sentence a preposition to end a sentence with? I'm with you all the way. And of course, I look forward to the month from now and all of that. So please, I'm looking for a hand there. All right. I think that
I have a question.
Don, but let me go with Alan.
I have a question.
And then Don.
With all of your knowledge about words and
Yes, sir.
all of that, how come men and women have different regard or definition or whatever for words?
You're from Mars and you're from Venus.
Yes.
Thank you,
it is
I
true.
love you. I love you.
Bingo.
Well, part of it is when Robert Frost wrote, Dear Lord, forgive my little jokes on thee, and I'll forgive thy one big joke on me. What he meant probably was death, which God doesn't experience, but I think he also meant men and women living under the same roof.
And they have nothing in
so I
common.
do get you. And I have to say, in general, I find that women are more into language, and they do speak, they've done tests, women speak more words in a given, 5 minutes, an hour, or whatever than men do.
'Cause they
They're
speak all
more
the
in,
time.
they're more in the literature and all of that. And I am an island of preposterone surrounded by a sea of estrogenius. And today kind of shows it a bit. But I'm a guy. Listen, I played college football. Admittedly, it was Division 14, but nonetheless, I actually played both ways. I was a wide receiver, and I played the defensive end. I still play, I've played national level tennis, blah, 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 this and that. I adore literature. I love Shakespeare. And I, I'd like to see more men. But what I will tell you is with my column in the paper, I get as many letters from men as I do from women. And I think as men move along in life, they do gain more respect. Sir Alan. But no, the women are more, and that's why they live longer. Those 6 years, they start with estrogen, what I call estrogenius. That's a better immune system thing. They're more careful about their health. Man, oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor, so I have this pain, big deal. They wash their hands better. They don't usually engage as much risky activity. And I know because I'm married to a very strong woman, my wife, Simone Van Egeren. Yes, she's Dutch, my Dutch treat. Our days together are saucy hollandaise. She's
No,
president. Thank you.
no,
Laurie really loved that one, I could see.
no.
No, it was Paulette. Sorry. Yes, yes, yes.
Has
You
her
want to put
hand
them in
up, too.
context and keep them short. And she's president of our local Mensa group. By the way, anybody interested? I got 100 on my IQ, perfect 100 on my IQ test, so I got in. Actually, it's a little bit higher than that. And we have more than 800 of us here. And by the way, if you wondered where we got the word Mensa, Mensa comes from an old Latin root that means he who got beat up in junior high school, if you're wondering. But honestly, if you need to inquire, I can tell you about that. So that would be my answer. How come? It's just there is something in the cultural values. I think masculinity is harder to hold on to. You have to prove your masculinity in a way that I'm not sure women have to prove their femininity in the same way. And oh my gosh, and I'm willing to say I love Shakespeare, I love literature, poetry, the purest form of language. And I believe I have a lot of what I would call the female in me. I couldn't do my work without it. And I am so grateful that I do. But it's harder for men.
A following comment question
Sure.
would be that I have heard that many of the Indian tribes and probably across the world, the women would pick the chief because they were the ones that raised their boys.
And with many animals and those, who are kind of related to us, the female does, run the whole thing. And some of those societies are very, female centric. And with a lot of the animals, of course, the young males they kind of go off and the females run things.
Yeah.
I can't
so I don't know why we're having a problem with that now. Because
yeah,
Didn't know there
No,
was
I
a
hear-
problem with it.
I know we have the freedom to be who we are, Alan.
Yes.
And with so many men, I just think they get into the sports more, younger, although now, by the way, my greatest coaching experience was our varsity girls basketball team at St. Paul's School. Best athletes I have. They didn't have any height except for the center, who was 5'9", but just the best athletes I've ever coached. But at any rate. So I'm on Don. I did promise you, and I think I saw another hand or two. Really, okay. So go ahead, Don, and then Paulette. I think I'll go to. Yes.
Okay, so I haven't really been able to take a breath. You had me at Annie Duke and Howard Lederer.
Yeah.
Because, and you mentioned, I thought I was being, I'm going to be clever by bringing up Queen's Gambit and your daughter. But if you haven't watched World Poker, and you've certainly heard about the intellectual
Oh yeah.
exercise of chess, but when it comes to poker, which I don't play, but a friend of mine explained it in a way that kind of gave me a little depth a few years ago, because he was from Montreal and he played up in Ventura County in a group that played poker, retired doctors and so forth. And I said, Frank, you are the best poker player I've ever seen. And he says, Don, it's easy to be good at poker in a neighborhood game where you're playing within yourself and you're playing with an amount of money that is within your budget. He says, why I have so much respect for World Poker. They are the best in the world because they're playing way outside financially and everything else. And that's where you really get tested. That's where the rubber meets the road. So when you said
Beautiful.
your daughter is Annie Duke,
Right.
and Howard, I have spent hours and
Great.
hours watching them, and you could do a whole class, or I would
Well-
love to hear you talk about the strategy of poker, because it's really the strategy of life, intuition, money.
Yeah.
It's
let's-
an amazing thing to me to hear you say this.
I would say, strike while the irony is hot. Excuse me, while the iron is hot. I think you have. What is the number? Not amount, incidentally. Number is countable. Your of Rotarians in your group.
Maybe
75.
60,
Yeah.
72.
And obviously, that's too many to work with. But if you're interested in when we're all out and about and an evening of poker, I will come along with chips and cards if you need, because I taught them, Don, as you can imagine. And I am telling you from diapers, and I don't mean mine, I mean theirs. And I could see right off, as with Beth Harmon, who's fictional, I said, oh my God, boy, they have ability. I could tell it then. My first wife, who passed, alas, was a games genius. My bridge partner, unbelievable. And I, as I hope you can tell, am a pattern guy. I am really in the patterns. You mentioned something, and just for example, happy Calendrome today. And not only today, but we're in the middle of 10 of them. The first one was Inauguration Day. A palindrome is forwards and backwards, madam, my madam, go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hog, to get really fancy. I've memorized about 150 of them. Any of you interested in palindromes, email me, I'll send you my disquisition. And a calendrome, which is a word I think I made up, is when the numbers do that. So on Inauguration Day, we had 1, 2, 0, 2, 1. And you can see the 0 is the fulcrum number, and then you have 1, 2, and 2, 1. So that makes a 5-number calendrome. Well, then after the 20th was the 21st. So as you change the number in the middle, you just have a different fulcrum number, 1, 2, 3, and 27th, 28th. So those genetics plus the environment, Don, made them. And when they play, I can see that their mind is working like mine, except it's with symbols and numbers. And I'm going, I know that, but I can't do that. Of course, they can't do what I do, but I can't do what they do. And let me tell you, they've really put it to good use in so many ways. So here's what I'm going to do. Don,
So many
if I
disciplines.
end up getting out to see you guys and doing poker or anything else, you email me and I'll bring you signed photographs of both of them.
Oh.
2 separate photographs, and anybody else who's a fan of Annie Duke. And by the way, a month from now, on the 24th, or almost a month, she is going to come up in my presidential um, performance. So
I just want to know how you teach Annie to have a lousy poker hand with it playing $500,000
I
and
know.
not show it on your face.
Because she is able to say, what is the other person, right? What does the other person think I have? That's the important thing. Don, the different, and others, if you don't mind, because you seem to be interested. Chess, which my son plays as well as poker, he was men's champion in New Hampshire at 16, and I had played as an undergraduate, is a complete information game. Everything is there. And the point about that is that as a result, Big Blue, the computer, was able to defeat Kasparov, Garry Kasparov, and you may know him. He's also a Russian activist,
Watson.
Putin, and about 30 years ago. And that's the best player in the world. The computer cannot do that with a bunch of poker players, not yet at any rate, because, and this is following your point, Don, poker is an incomplete information game. What happens in Texas Hold'em, and I will demonstrate it if we ever end up doing this, or you can maybe, I hope you set up a tournament for a fundraiser. I've done that with some of the groups, but for Rotary, I mean. So you end up with 5 cards in the middle and only your 2 underneath in Texas Hold'em, which is the game, make a difference. And you're all telling stories, but you don't know what the others have, although when you get good, you can begin to get a good sense. And so it's like life itself. Life itself is incomplete information. So this game is 50% luck and 50% skill, which is more skill than almost any other poker game, I think, than any other. So not to get off on that, Don, remember, I'll have the photos for you. And I'm there to help.
Wonderful,
with
wonderful.
it. And then, was it another gentleman who had the hand up?
Paulette.
Oh, Paulette, sorry, very sorry, Paul. Okay,
No.
Paulette.
No, yeah, this is back to a grammar question. Doesn't have
Yes.
anything to do with poker, but Oxford commas or no?
Thank you.
There have
All right,
been.
where is Paulette on the screen? I'm trying to find you. Oh, no, that's Suzanne, Sophia.
Wave her
Oh, there
hand.
she is. Okay, thank you very much. So Paulette is asking about the Oxford comma, also known as the Harvard comma, and the serial comma. And so the question is, the flag is red, comma, white, blue. Do you put the comma after white? And I'm going to give you 2 or 3 ways to back up. And Paulette, I'm happy to send you my own writing on this. I have a book just on punctuation called Comma Sense. And again, that list is going to be shown on, I don't know, is it going to be, Robin, is it on the website? You have a website where you'll put this, or?
We'll get it up on our website and we'll get it up in
Wonderful. And of course, that's signed and inscribed. If you pay by PayPal, it may not let you say, okay, I'd like it inscribed to, Merry Christmas to Susie Smith or Jimmy Jones. But if you just add that in an email, an author adores to inscribe and sign. A, it means more to the recipient, and B, the recipient can't give it away to someone else. So let's go to the Oxford comma. Very important. I am a huge backer of it. Why? A, and most obviously, because punctuation exists to mirror or echo the human voice, except in writing, you can't hear that. We don't say the flag is red, white, blue. We say the flag is red, white, and blue. We have a level cadence there, and that second comma preserves it. Some teachers may have told you, oh, it replaces, the and replaces the comma. Complete bullpucky. The and doesn't do anything there. You don't, Jack and Jill, the and isn't went up a hill. You know, it's not replacing a comma.
No.
In addition, without that comma, you can miscommunicate. Now, visualize this if you can. One of the famous book dedications in our history is a writer actually wrote, "To my parents, comma, the Pope and Mother Teresa." End of dedication. You see the problem there, because without the comma after Pope, it looks like it's only two people. To my parents, mother and father, presumably, not always, my parents, comma, the Pope and Mother Teresa makes Pope and Mother Teresa and a positive, and it looks like they are your parents. You always wondered about the Pope and Mother Teresa, didn't you? Now you know. Or someone who wrote, "When I went off to camp, I missed my, I'm not sure I can get this exactly, my parents, you know, my brother and sister, comma, my dog, and the odor of my dad's pipe and my boyfriend." And no comma after pipe. So the odor of my dad's pipe and my boyfriend. You see, without that comma, you're going to put them together. I've collected many examples. That said, Paulette, when I write for the Union Tribune, I don't use it because newspapers don't, and some magazines do, and some don't, and it kills me. You know,
I
just,
wondered.
oh, you know, and like Dr. Strangelove, nope, you can't do that. Stay away from that comma, because somehow they think it saves a little space. I think it's ridiculous. I think they should always be in there for meaning and for cadence. So the answer is absolutely. And if you need more on that, you just email me, richardhlederer@gmail.com, and I'll send you what you need. So
Thank
as we
you.
get near the end, I think I may have seen a hand or two, and then I'll just close with a toast to all of you. But anything else? Yes.
I can't wave, but I was wondering, you had said end a sentence with a preposition, and
Yeah.
I know it was verboten, and I heard that not so much anymore.
It has never been verboten in any reputable grammar book.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes, it is passed on by gossip, by some teachers, and the terminal preposition is part of the genius. So I will tell you just one story now, and if we do one of these days, I will tell you the famous four. It is so suspect and bogus. Was that Paulette who asked me that?
No, Judy.
Oh, Judy. Okay, where are you? All right,
I'm
Judy.
I'm a blank because
Oh yeah.
I had a treatment.
Rolls is how you.
Rolls. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
That's my husband. It's English. I'm Italian.
Okay.
It's easy.
Well, I have
Easy.
a lot
Anyway,
of
the
Italian.
more that you ever wanted to know. Anyway.
Yeah. No. I want to know everything about all of you. You're my students. So it is so bogus that it gives us. So the famous one is Sir Winston Churchill, one of the greatest. Hey, sign me up. I'm wondering what that's for, but from Mark Rodriguez.
We're planning a poker game, Richard.
Oh, the poker. Well, all right. I think the best format there would be to have a tournament and, you know, and a bunch of tables. You might have to hire a group to come in and some dealers. And then before that, I do some sort of instruction for the players in some way. And I live in Scripps Ranch, so, you know.
Could we do it? Could we do it on Zoom since we're still in COVID?
I don't see how that could be done.
Let's wait till we
Yeah,
can have fun again.
it's not going to be that long, but
Robin, I'll just send you my money.
yes, that's right. Save it. That's right. Send it to me. Make the check out and save the gas. So at any rate, Winston Churchill, one of the great stylists of our times, you know, wonderful writer, had a sentence mangled when an officious Whitehall editor untimely ripped, I'm quoting from Macbeth there, the preposition at the end to the front. And Churchill wrote back, huffing, this is the kind of errant nonsense up with which I shall not put. And you see the point of that. You want to watch out for rules like the split infinitive,
Right.
etc., in which they work against the language as we actually use it. You know, let's say you're a teacher, and in the teacher's room, my God, there's a nice piece of drippy chocolate, slice of drippy chocolate cake. Do you say, for whom is this cake? Of course you don't. You say, who's this cake for? Or maybe whom, but you certainly don't say, for whom is this cake? And I will have a
No,
lot
it
of
sounds
other schools.
affected, definitely.
It's just not English. It's like what a Martian would do, but it appears, and it's the same with a split infinitive. You are allowed to boldly go. See, I put the adverb between to and the root infinitive verb. Of course, because that's the best place to put it. Now, there are rules, and believe me, I like to see them enforced, but the terminal preposition isn't one. So, shall I say goodbye?
Okay.
Elizabeth, I don't know.
I won't tell you about I won't tell you about my 5th grade experience. That's okay.
Go ahead, Alan.
I had a teacher who we had to outline every sentence.
You mean diagram?
Yes, that's awesome.
Right, Catholic school by any chance?
And you outline it. This is the noun, this is pronoun. And
it's diagramming.
Yes.
To me, diagram. Thank you. That was the most important class I think I've ever had.
Right. It works for a lot of people because you understand phrases and clauses in sentences. And I'm asking, was that parochial school? I don't mean the pride, but typically it's a non-teaching.
It was a public school, but they did not have in their concept that I was going to get married.
Oh, they were wrong.
Yeah, there's a book, Sister Bernadette, I think, and the Barking Dog, and it's reminiscences of Catholic school and diagramming sentences. Sister Bernadette, I think if you Google it, and the Barking Dog, because of course, the Barking Dog.
I could have written that book, I'll tell you. Diagramming. 12 years of Catholic school, I wrote that book.
In my public school in Philadelphia, we never had a smidge of it. But when I became a teacher at this Episcopal school, I said, I want my students to reap the full fruits of American civilization. So I'm going to teach it to myself and to them. And we did. And it made such a difference in SATs and stuff like that. Yes. And guess what, folks? It's hardly taught anymore. And even at St. Paul's, I had to teach it to the younger incoming teachers. They had no idea because it's not sexy and interesting and involving, but it's very important. And I'm sure, Alan, it has influenced your life and obviously several others.
Outlining was
diagramming.
Diagramming was excellent. Yeah. It gave you that concept of what it's all about.
Sure. If you ever have any grammar questions, Alan, Laurie, whatever, anything like that, email me and I'll do my best, but I'm pretty strong in it. That's why I'm the usage editor of the Random House Dictionary. And I never had it. I never had it in school. I never had it with my family. And that's why it means so much to me. So I think I will close because obviously you want to have dinner.
Thank you very much.
But I hope you feel the time has gone by. As one frog said to the other, time's fun when you're having flies. And that's called chiasmus. That's us reversing two parts. And I'll close with a toast to all of you. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my water here, so we'll just pretend. Why do we call it a toast, my friends? We call it a toast. I'm not making this up because back in the days of William Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth I, I'm not making this up, the people, and we're talking late 16th, early 17th century, actually would dip, immerse slices of spice toast into their tankards of ale to improve the flavor and remove the impurities. And you're getting together as Rotarians, absolutely does that, improves the flavor and the impurities. And these evening ones, I just think is a great idea. And I hope it won't surprise you. Anytime you need one completely different topic, Shakespeare, grammar, presidents coming up, I'm there for you. And by the way, I have others, who I think would be very entertaining for you, and I'm happy to supply those when your program asks. So my favorite is here is champagne to our real friends. Here's real pain to our sham friends. Thank you for being real friends of Rotary Club of Rancho Santa Fe, and for being real friends of our glorious, uproarious, notorious, victorious, outrageous, courageous, contagious, stupendous, tremendous, end over endless adventure that we call the English language. Love you all. See you in a month. Bye.
Thank you, Richard.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Loved it. On February 24th for presidents.
At about the same time as I recall.
Yes.
Now that one, I will have a PowerPoint, and what I really want to tell you all is it is completely nonpartisan. It would be an absolutely unethical platform if I got partisan on you, so I won't. Now, the thing about being nonpartisan is you're going to have some laughs, but not like tonight, because if I got real funny, it would get political. And therefore, I can't do that, and you wouldn't want me to. So
No.
believe me, you will have no
So we're
idea
all
where I am.
assuming you're a Democrat then.
I am not saying